quality which needs to be innate in you. You'll just cultivate that. It is something which is not a technique to be acquired, it's that which is to be realized. Why am I saying? What do I understand by that genuine curiosity? Genuine curiosity arises in situations of mediation where you ask just not the question, what had happened? Why has it happened like this? Why do you feel this way? How does it matter to you in this way? So asking open-ended questions is one thing, all of us understand that. To be genuinely concerned, to be genuinely interested in knowing, a curiosity to know every aspect of it. Supposing it's a kind of a commercial problem of what has happened, of parties in a dispute, of what is being supplied is not accepted by the other, or having accepted is not paying. Then if he's talking about a payment which was scheduled, which couldn't be done, why could you not pay? What was the problem? Tell me what had happened. No, all this is not necessary. Let us come to the brass tacks. Never post things like that. Get to really know what has happened to every little thing. Every aspect of a case would require your attention, and therefore to engage in questions, to engage meaningfully, to sound earnest, to, if it is necessary, to even come forward and then listen to the person with your eyes wide open to know what's happening without yarning. So it is essential to have immense curiosity in a way which is very earnest. So therefore, genuine curiosity is what I would think as something which is exceedingly relevant, important. It should be cultivated, and it makes a lot of meaning. And the second thing is, Jawad would say that on many occasions, there is never a success. Sometimes we feel bad that something has not happened the way we thought it should, and we feel bad it has not happened. This is understood in some way as doing the footwork and letting it go. It is important for us to know that parties may arrive, and then they may arrive at a settlement even without your interventions in a very big way. Or the settlement may have happened in spite of you and not because of you. So therefore, there are situations that not at all times that you are responsible for a settlement. But then there are ever so many situations you make all the difference. You set the environment proper. You keep everything going well for them. You make conversations possible in so many ways. And in spite of all that, something doesn't work. If it doesn't work, you need to be sounding concerned. It's not really a kind of a disappointment. It's on the other hand, it has not happened. Why has it not happened must be again the question. To keep the conversations going further, even after it has ended, it is possible perhaps for you to be engaging in a mail. These days, all of us have understood how important it is for you to keep yourself in communication with others in so many other ways, such as email is one, picking up a phone call and speaking. All these are essential. But then there is, like they say, there is never a failure in mediation, and therefore to keep your mind uncluttered and not feeling responsible you are the cause for something didn't happen, that you have done everything and just let go with that. That I think is the second quality of what I think you should cultivate. This is something which is essential for you have done everything. And without doing, whether it works or not, it is there, look out. It is never like that. That you can, in a big way, if I've understood the first point, if we have understood what I said as relevance, that you can modify things, you can truly influence the proceedings as to how they go, then you also know if something has not happened well, probably is essential for you to be asking if everything was all right. And if everything had been done properly and something is not really turning out well, to let go and to see how things are taking shape. That's the second thing, what I thought I should tell you. The third thing is to find the place of love in your heart. You need to know, you need to identify that area of yourself, which is so essential for you to fill that room with. How does it work? if you may have seen in ever so many situations that you have set the rules of game, you have told them how they must carry conversations, but then there is suddenly a fight. Uh, a good mediator is one who is able to see that there is a heat getting generated, a heat which would require to be taken care of, a fire which should be doused before it happens. But when it happens, it is essential for you to keep your calm and then not lose the calm there. To feel flustered is the last thing which you should ever do. If it is even an anger directed at you, if your own impartiality is being challenged, or somebody tells you that this is not fair, that you can still keep your cool, keep your hands, don't cross your hands, that you're really keeping it like that, like the body language they say, be vulnerable to attack if it is essential. Keep your hands by your sides, look at them directly and see them with all care. Bring to fore all your active listening skills to the core. If somebody is telling you, somebody is charging you, that you still look at the person with all seriousness and then try to find out what is it that the person is saying. Why is that person finding that it is not correct? Now, it recently happened to me in a situation where I found that there was a person who was supporting a party who was angry. He was trying to be exceedingly technical about what I was saying. Half the time, he used to be thinking, put my hand down there in such a pain in the neck. What is he trying to do? And then somewhere the conversation didn't go further and we had to reschedule it to some other date. Then I was calling my friend, a close friend of mine, and I was telling her, see that I found there is so much of anger about the person. And she told me immediately, that is the way he has to sound, don't you think? He has to support the party. It is his turf, isn't it? Should he not hold his turf? I realized that was something very important. I see that person passionate about what he is doing for his party. And the next meeting when we convened, the first thing which I said after some time, it was culturally possible for me to put my hands on the person. This again, be very careful whether you can put your hand on the shoulder of the person or you can come very close to the person. All that depends on the culture, the place where you are. And I was telling that person, I truly understood why you were saying that day. You're truly passionate about what you were saying that. I appreciate that. Then I could see that the person was beaming, he sounded confident. He thought his own anger was identified as a passion for something, and there was a mediator who was prepared to look at that in a very different way. So therefore, I realized that even a kind of anger, what you may find, if you identify that as belonging to an important facet of an advocacy there for a person who comes to the mediation session, that is important, and that can happen only if you have love in your heart. So therefore, there are so many other things to say, but I'm seeing that I'm crossing into the 15th minute, and therefore I'm sure I will keep this as some preliminary observations. There are more things which I would surely come up with. And if Sriram has joined, Sriram, otherwise Jawad is there. It's such a Jawad, I'm sure in your practice you have seen ever so many situations of what really matters, how our own conditioning in our mind affects others. I'm sure I'll give that over to you, Jawad. Observations of what you think are relevant.
I think Mr. Sriram Panchu has joined us. So I think Mr. Sriram Panchu has joined us. So we'll hand over the.
Thank you, Jawad. Let me make a few.
Thank you, sir.
Let me make a few points briefly. I'm sorry I'm not in the best of shape. I had a leg injury earlier today, and it's troubling me a lot. But my doctor who's here has very kindly allowed me to speak for a few minutes. So let me make some quick points. And I think I'll leave it to Jawad and Justice Kannan to develop them. Point number one, don't be anxious to get a result. It's a common, problem with mediators of, all ranges of experience. that we want to succeed. We want a positive result. And that is actually what detracts me of mediation. A non-anxious mediator is far more likely to succeed. Because if you're non-anxious, you bring a sense of calm and balance to the room. If you're anxious, you don't. Your face will betray it. Because you're showing a compulsion to settle, and the parties are going to read that. They may withdraw, or they may expect you to make the moves, or they may resist your suggestions. So whenever you show a sense of anxiousness, you're setting up something, an energy which acts the reverse direction. So as Kannan said, just be calm, but remember the word non-anxious. Point number 2. We're all advocates, we've been advocates, and as advocates, we are used to impassioned arguments, hectoring, laying emphasis on words, phrases, taking positions, arguing strongly. That's what we've done all our lives. You can't do that in mediation. Your job is not to persuade a party to do what you think is right. Your job is to widen the perspective of the party, to make them look at their long-term interests, to make them look at where they are if they're not going to settle. And all the 101 things which are part of the mediator's skills and techniques. When you do that, you open the road for the parties to walk on. If you're behaving like an advocate, you're probably pushing them with all your strength. Don't do that. Just open the road, point them in the direction, nudge them a bit to come up with suggestions, but let them walk that road. You don't pull them on that road. And you don't push them on that road. There is only one circumstance in which I've used kind of impassioned arguments, and that's in the very end, where it looks as though everything's going to fail. You don't lose anything. So you might as well put your persuasive skills to the test. But that's a very rare contingency. One should avoid it, really. Point number 3, keep your feelings under control. You're dealing with human life, human nature. In the natural course, something will evoke your sympathy, something will evoke your displeasure. In the natural course, you develop prejudices. You carry your prejudices. You develop prejudices from seeing people at the table. You have to be careful about this. You have to be careful about this. And the best way to be careful, I think, is to be aware. Once you're aware about it, you're careful. So I think it's good to constantly keep, checking to see, is my sense of awareness there? Am I getting carried away by a feeling, an emotion, an impulse? Because it's a common thing, it's very common. To most things, we react with some kind of emotion, negative, positive, something. Again, you can't do that as a mediator. So these are things, I think, which you learn, during the course of practice. So I thought I'll stop here with 3 points. I have a few more, but maybe I'll come back after Jawad and Kannan.
So first of all, thank you that despite the fact that you had a fall yet, it shows that what you have told us, that patience and perseverance is the key for mediation. It shows that your passion for the mediation speaks volume. Otherwise, in the ordinary parlance, one would have said that even though I've committed, I should take rest. Mr. Jawad, we would like certain insights from your side.
Thank you, Vikas. Thank you, Justice Kannan. Thank you, sir, Mr. Panchu. There's a saying in Hindi, "Kawa chale hans ki chal." So among the two peacocks, I somehow feel like I can't help feeling like a crow here.
Yeah.
So nevertheless, I'll just try to develop on what both Justice Kannan said as well as what Mr. Sriram Panchu said. Justice Kannan started with the approach that we have as lawyers and judges. That is deciding between right and wrong. The general attitude that we have towards any problem is who's right, who's wrong. That is the normal approach that everybody invariably takes. In other words, when we are listening to somebody, we are not listening to understand, but we are listening to judge. So, and we are listening also to answer, to argue with them. So half the time we are not really listening to them because most of the information that we get from the parties, that what happens is that information gets lost in our own mind somewhere. Reminded of a beautiful quote of Rumi, the Persian Sufi poet, who said, out beyond the ideas, out beyond the idea of right doing and wrongdoing, there lies a field. I will meet you there. That is, I think, the fundamental premise on which mediation is based. In mediation, we are not actually on a fault-finding exercise. We are not trying to decide who's right and who's wrong. We are just trying to understand what is in the best interest of the parties, what are their deepest concerns, what are their fears, what are their anxieties, and how do we address these issues. Also, Justice Kannan said that keep your mind unconcerned about the outcome really should not concern a mediator, because what happens is it becomes a sort of a scoring board as to how many cases I have settled and how many cases you have settled when we make settlement as the focus. Judiciary understandably is concerned about settlements and lays a lot of emphasis on that. But traditional purist mediators actually do not concern, because what happens if you start concerning yourself about the outcome, what you're actually doing is you're owning the problem. You become the owner of the problem, which I don't think is really the right thing to do in a mediation. The problem belongs to the parties. The solution also belongs to them. You are there merely as a person who's just helping them to understand what is in their best interests. So that role, I don't think we should forget. Then he also said about a place for love. I will come to that in a short while. I think that point also, the second point, don't be concerned about the outcome, also gets covered by what Mr. Sriram Panchu said, that don't be anxious to get the result and don't persuade the parties. It is not your job to persuade them. It's just your job is only to help them to understand. Let us see how what really happens to our minds, because we are also humans. Mediators are victims of what is called as unconscious bias. It is unconscious bias. It is not conscious. It is not merely a prejudice of which you may be aware of, but it is something which is deep down in your unconscious. Now, that unconscious bias actually guides you in how you perceive somebody, or how you perceive a particular matter, or how you perceive a particular information that comes to your knowledge. Now, those perceptions, how you perceive that, depends on many factors. Those factors are your own experiences, your value system, your belief system, the notions that you hold, all these things, they go into what is called as perception, how you perceive something. Just to understand that better, let us say that, we have the same set of facts are presented to two different people. Now, what happens to these two different people is they perceive those same set of facts in a different way. Einstein in one way tried to, explain it in his theory of relativity, but that is too complicated, and I don't think I have understood that myself to be able to explain that here. But for the simple thing that two people see the same thing in a different way, because how they perceive it. Now, how they perceive it are through those filters called perceptions. Those are the filters that where your experiences, your own idea of things, your own notions, your beliefs, your values, what you feel is important. All these are filters that help you to understand that information. So two people cannot understand the same information in the same way. So first what happens is you select information. You don't take the whole information as such, but you select what you feel is important. As mediators, we have to be very careful. As lawyers, we do that. We select the information that we feel is important. As Justice Kannan pointed out, what we feel is important to improve the case of the party. But as mediators, we cannot be selective about the information. But as human beings, normally what we do is we select the information. Then we interpret the information in our own way using these very same filters. Okay. And then we give meaning to that and we reach a conclusion. So supposing party A, so let's say mediator A is listening to somebody and mediator B, his co-mediator, is listening to somebody. The same set of facts, the same person is speaking, giving the same information. The conclusion that mediator A will reach will be different from the conclusion that mediator B will reach. So this is how we interpret and understand information based upon what is called as our unconscious bias. Unconscious bias is a very huge field, but one thing we need to understand is it is something that starts from the day we are born. It starts from the day we are born. There are many things, like I always give the example, like somebody walks into the room. You don't know who the person is, but instinctively you like the person. Another person walks into the room, you don't know who he is, you don't know his name, you don't know her background, nothing you know, but you instinctively dislike. There are certain things you like, there are certain things you dislike. So these are all, perceptions which are formed, biases which are formed when we were infants. We don't know why it is happening to us. We cannot formulate those things in words because we experienced those things from our caretakers when we could not articulate our feelings. We did not know the language. We did not know how to speak. We are infants. We don't know that. So we don't know how to articulate that information. So what happens is that information that we start collecting from the time we are born, our experiences that start from that time, how our caretakers, whether a father, mother, your nanny, or whoever it might be, how they treat you, how they deal with you, what kind of, how they respond to your needs. These are all, the kind of information that we keep collecting. It continues till we die. Now, these lie embedded somewhere deep down in your subconscious. And when you hear somebody, when you listen to somebody, or when you see someone, immediately you relate to that experience without even knowing that you're doing it. It is completely unconscious. So now, what is important now? How do we overcome this unconscious bias? A book has been written by Howard Ross. He's the author of Everyday Bias. So he's written about how to identify and navigate unconscious bias and judgments in our daily lives. Now, he defines unconscious bias as mental associations without awareness, intention, or control. We are not aware of that. It is totally unintentional, and we have no control over it. Now, what happens is sometimes the unconscious bias can conflict with our conscious opinions. Okay. So Ross adds that these unconscious biases often conflict with our conscious attitudes, behaviors, and intentions. He says the first step to deal with unconscious bias is to acknowledge that we are all victims of unconscious bias. We all have our biases. There's no person in this world who can say that I am totally without prejudice, I'm totally without any bias whatsoever. I imagine myself as a person who's without very strong biases or attitudes. But I realize, when it comes to certain issues, even I have my own biases. It takes a lot of introspection to really understand that, yes, this is a bias that I have. Now, this is where what is called as emotional intelligence, which Mr. Sriram Panchu said, holding your feelings under control. Emotional intelligence comes. It's a term which was coined by researchers Peter Salovey and John Mayer, and it was popularized by Daniel Goleman in his book Emotional Intelligence. It refers to the ability to recognize, understand, and manage our own emotions as well as those of others. Now, in his book, he calls it as two things. He says one is self-restraint, our ability to control our own emotions, and empathy, the ability to understand the other person's emotions. Now, these are two very essential qualities for mediators. As we say, mediation training is not just the 40-hour training, it is a training in a life skill. Once you get trained as a mediator, as Justice Kannan pointed out, it brings about a whole lot of difference in the way you approach and your attitude to life. I'll just end by saying that one best practice that uses emotional intelligence, it comes from a firm called Cook-Ross. It is a firm that specializes in helping organizations address unconscious bias. They suggest taking a pause to check one's reaction. Now, what do they mean by pause? It's an acronym. They use it as a pause as an acronym, but pause as in pausing is also important because they say you just pause. First, pay attention to what is happening beneath the surface. How are you feeling about it? Just step back a little, just think, am I angry about this? Has this made me sad? Has this made me upset? Think about it. Think about what is happening beneath the surface. Your face might be absolutely placid. You may not be showing any expression. You may not be showing any anger. It happened with me in one case where this mother was ill-treating the child. I'm very sensitive about children. I can swear that I did not have any expression. I did not look accusingly at her, nothing. But after just a few sessions, she went and told the mediation center that this mediator is prejudiced against me. I want a change of mediator. So parties can find out if you have that bias in you and if that is affecting you, whether you show it or not, the other person can always feel the vibrations and recognize that bias. The second thing, that is pay attention to what is happening beneath the surface. P stands for pay attention. Number two, acknowledge your own reactions, interpretations, and judgments. Acknowledge that how are you reacting to the situation? How are you interpreting it? As I said, we select information, we interpret information, we give meaning to it, and we reach a conclusion. So how are we interpreting the information, and what is the conclusion that we are reaching now? Is that conclusion the party's conclusion, or is it our conclusion? Is it the party's understanding of the issue, or is it our understanding of the issue? The next is understand. So P and A is over. Understand the other possible reactions, interpretations, and judgments. So once you have understood your own reaction, your own interpretation, and your own conclusion, try to see what the other person's understanding of it is. What is their possible reaction? How have they interpreted, and what conclusion have they reached? The next is search, S. Search for the most empowering and productive way forward. Now that needs a lot of advocacy. First, inquiry. You need to ask the right kind of questions, and that is where the importance of questions comes up in mediations. How do you look at this issue? What is your understanding of it? Can you help me to understand how you perceive this problem as? Can we discuss a little more about how you think about it? How you're looking at it? That inquiry is very important. Okay, so unless you ask those questions, you cannot find that, you cannot search for the empowering and productive way forward. Then the next is E, execute on the plan. So once you have reached that, you have understood the other person's conclusion, and if it matches with yours, well and good. If it does not match with yours, try to see why it does not, why the person has understood that way, and how can you make that person look at it from a different perspective. So execute on plan. Now, one very useful technique that William Ury suggests in his book Getting to S is going to the balcony, right? The balcony perspective. He says, take a break, stand up, And just look at the whole issue as if you're standing on a balcony. Because if you're in the crowd, if supposing there's a party going on, you're in the crowd, and some kind of a fracas breaks out, you get lost in it. You just go to the balcony and then you can see what is happening. You get a bird's eye view of what is happening. So the balcony view, go to the balcony, pause, reflect on what is happening, and then come back. So I think I'll stop there. I hope I have not exceeded my time.
No, it's well within the time. Mr. Jawad, meanwhile, you can also examine while we are posting the questions. Since the bandwidth is not very good, therefore the audibility and the voice gets cracked up. Just check it out at your end.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I will carry the conversation from where Jawad left. There is one issue which I would like to join by saying he referred to Yuri, and the title of the book is Getting to Say Yes. I was handling a session of negotiation for some of the lawyers, and I came by a very interesting passage by Chris Voss, who was a FBI negotiator. He was a hostage negotiator. And he would say that if the statement is, what you're saying is correct, it's invariably in some kind of resignation. It's you say that, all right, that seems to be correct. The expression that you must elicit at the time when negotiations take place is correct. Instead of saying I am correct or you are correct, that's correct is an objective way of saying that both of them are on the same page. That's the way the conversation must go, is what Vas would say. I will say two other things relating to how you need to improve as a mediator. This is about how lateral thinking is essential for a mediator. I'm sure many of us know what lateral thinking is. Dibano promoted it for the cause of management and other people, and it's very popular. Anything which goes on a logical way from one to another is the normal way we think. But then the moment you have another dimension to it, slightly unrelated, a kind of a kink, a third dimension, that's when it is lateral thinking. It comes in poetry, for instance. You believe that something must happen in a particular way, you suddenly say that wow moment. The same way, probably, if it's not poetry, the short story towards the end, it gets you to feel, oh, this has happened. That wow moment or a whole moment is what is created through a lateral thinking. It's another way of saying you should find what is really making it happen the way it does. Is there something else to what is seemingly a cause? That is an important job which a mediator always engages in. That lateral thinking quality, it's essential for us to know that everything does not fit into logic. Beyond logic, something else has happened. I've seen it in a case where there was a person who is very in a partnership dispute, where this person was exceedingly tight-fisted. He will not give out very easily. He was not prepared to accommodate any ordinary expenses. He will ask 100 questions about what had happened, why is this done? And therefore, there was disquiet amongst the partners, and they had come to fight, and there was a conflict. I was trying to figure out what was happening. He suddenly said something about his father's death sometime early, and just wanted to know something more. So what had happened? Where were you? From which place? Then he went on to say something about his childhood, and something about his childhood to also saying how he had gone through difficult times. His father was not keeping too well. He was not earning, and the economic impoverishment of what he had seen, and he ultimately came through. He struck good. By sheer dint of hard work, he came to some status in life. He was able to invest money, set up something, a good business going, and involved other persons also. There I found that here was a man who had probably some other reason. This is his impoverishment and other thing conditions his mind to thinking that you need to be very careful about the money that you use. You will not spill it unnecessarily. All these kind of things. That there could be requirements which he could not see as essential. He could not see as necessary. there could be something else was possible. So therefore, once you get to know that his posturing of being harsh with persons, he was in fact the experience of several other persons was, he is not a man to whom you can go with any problem and talk to him, because he had already closed his mind. So in some way, persons who are not very easily communicative, who feel something else is wrong, you try and find out why. You will find you are able to get at it, and then explain to that person also at the time in the conversation, I'm sure I understand what you're saying, why you are feeling like this. There have been tough times, you have understood life well, but then look at it this way. Shall we examine it from the way from what he's saying? So therefore, it is another way of looking at it. Lateral thinking comes in so many other, through several examples as well. But I'm merely pointing out to you that finding an underlying interest could come through allowing for party to go for narration of what may not seem immediately to be relevant, but you'll be able to get a lot of things. And that can probably unbundle a person of his own problems. He'll come out with some more issues, and he'll be able to find a solution. There is another aspect which I would say, I'm not too sure if Sriram is able to join. I don't see him there. But I'll therefore say one more thing of a quality which I was truly taken up. This was about a doctor. The doctor's name was Groupman. This is a person who had, when you take, I'm taking a foreign example, I'm sure there are ever so many persons here as well. They used to be saying about Dr. Guruswami like that. Even as a patient comes, you look at him, you'll know what disease he is. A great clinician that he was, you will always allow him a full narration. You will not immediately look for all reports. Now, many of the doctors, perhaps they look at only investigation reports first. But then here is a doctor. Sriram is there. I'll just add this up and then hand over to you, Sriram. Just giving an example as to how you become an integrated mediator. This, I thought, was essential from the example of a doctor who would hold the patient. You will find, you'll palpate his tummy. He has a stethoscope. He puts his stethoscope to every part of the body. Ask him again, please tell me what is your illness. Tell me what it is. He would also assure, I know I have all the reports with me, but I'm not taking all of them immediately. I want you. I want you to say everything. I want to feel the illness of what you're experiencing, what you're going through. The same way, and that he said something like, you know, that the word was exceedingly, I became integrated into his experience, what the doctor would say. A patient, treating a patient, a cancer patient, was not merely looking at some of the reports and then writing out prescriptions. That he feels the person, he gets close to him, has him narrate everything, puts it all into his ear, and then responding to him, where he gets integrated into his experience. The same way, for a mediator, it is essential that you probably have read the brief. It's also good practice for you to know what the problem is, so that you put the persons in comfort. If there is a need for engaging that person on a private talk, probably on a call at the time of convening, you can also say, ensure that you explain the process. All that is one. But then in the hall, never cut out a narration by saying, yes, yes, I know, I've seen the papers. Allow that person to say that he has an issue, he has a problem which he has encountered with the other side. You see only if there is a problems reported, only because both of them don't see the problem the same way, there is a conflict. That each one has his own perception of the issue is the cause for the conflict itself. Therefore, to allow the person to say what the person feels like saying, listen to the person with immense curiosity, make questions and open-ended questions and elicit the person, you truly become an integrated mediator. Like a doctor who will not merely see the reports and then come to a diagnosis, elicit everything of what is essential. It's the person, the mediator comes into the room, he examines the temperature of the room, the warmth, whether it's cold, hot, sees the parties, their own warmth, you will see that. And then you try to unlock the healing potential which is present in the parties themselves. And that is there available. And therefore, you to say, but to practice mediation this way is at once, Hoffman would say, it is at once a manner of dealing with both the heart and the mind. So therefore, among other things, I think an integrated mediator would be one who will understand all this, take up the situation, and then become one with the parties. That everything of what that person feels, or what an important quality of empathy of what they say, you need at all times, you need to feel the same pain of what that person says. No, you must at least at that time. It's not anything, but listen to the person, that you understand why the person is going through. Why is that person behaving like that? All that is an important experience. Sriram, this is some of the ideas which I thought I should also let them know. Anything else, Sriram? We carried our conversation to examining how we handhold parties and then see things. Yeah, Sriram.
Some point I would like you to compare the integrated personality of a mediator with the integrated personality of the judge. It'll be interesting because both are integrated.
Judgmental.
Sorry?
The judge is at all times judgmental in his ways, is he not? He is looking at the world in binary options of right and wrong, correct and incorrect. Which judge is prepared to listen to him, and then what is just acceptable to both? It seldom happens.
I don't just have, integrated personalities in life.
Sir, your voice is breaking. Your voice is breaking, sir.
Is against the judge's function.
Hello?
Sriram sir, your voice is cracking.
Not cracking, it's not audible.
The audio has.
Audio as well as no video also one.
No video to hega.
So Mr. Atul Lakhanpal is already on the platform.
Yeah.
Kannan sir?
Yes.
Hi,
Nice to see you, Atulji.
I'm good. How are you, everyone?
All well, thank you.
I never wanted to miss this. One of the best in India. You all, three of you.
Mr. Panchu.
Yeah.
So, I think Mr. Ponchu is.
We are unmuting him. In fact, we don't unmute. In fact, we can only unmute everybody, or we can unmute gradually. Otherwise, there's a lot of vibration. Then the voice starts. Over to Mr. Panchu.
So Panchu has a problem. He's not able to come through video or audio.
I was talking about.
Yeah, that's fine.
You hear me?
Yeah, Mr. Panchu.
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Am I audible?
Better.
Okay. Kannan was talking about certain forms of thinking, which are meditation.
Panchu sir, if you believe you can exit and then re-enter, probably the audibility will become better. Or it's fine. You can just check it at your end.
And intuition guidelines process and following those very strictly. But I think all of you will know that at a particular time, you start finding that there is some intuition that is working. This will be a course. I'll give you an example. It was biblical. But there will be times when it may be disastrous to have a joint session. This is your feel, your intuition, which tells you need to be careful about this. how that intuition comes, is a remarkable process of experience, thought, garnering insight from the outside. But watch for it. Watch for it. You find that sometimes the rule book doesn't give you the answers you need. The other point I want to say is, if you're lucky to have a mediator mentor, keep in touch with him or her. Go back to him or her, for the doubts you have, for the difficulties, for the obstacles, because somebody with experience has probably faced those things and has known how to sort them out. Two other very fundamental points, and maybe Justice Kannan and Chatrath have touched on those. For every religious text teaches us that you must do your best and let the results be. It's easy to say, we hear it so many times. It's one of the most difficult things to do. When you participated in that dialogue with parties, you had multiple sessions, when you've come a long way, it's not easy to say that, I'm going to be completely neutral about the result, or the result doesn't bother me. It's not easy at all. And I don't think really any of us will ever get to that, perfect stage of the Bhagavad Gita. But I think one has to constantly keep telling oneself that, I'm doing my best, and I come up to this point. Beyond this point, I do not walk, because it is not my road. It'd be nice to identify that point, I walk up to this point, it is my road. Beyond this point, I do not walk, because it is not my road. One other point, you must look back in running mediations. And especially when you haven't succeeded, you haven't got a result, you will look back. But again, there's a clear line between looking back to retrospect and study and learn from the situation, or looking back with regret. The first is positive, the second is disastrous. But both involve a process of looking back. Looking back is virtually automatic when something hasn't worked out. It's also good when something has worked out to look back, although that's not so commonly practiced. But looking back is natural. The skill lies in whether you're retrospecting and learning, or regretting and regressing. So again, that's a line to be drawn. Doing your best, leaving the result be, there's a line to be drawn. Retrospect and regret are two different compartments. But both are, I think, important lines. That's it. Yep. Chatrath?
Thank you, sir. I think that's a very important point that you have made. I just want to place one more.
Okay, if you don't mind, I'm going to go offline just so that I can take some medication. I'll join you soon.
Okay, sir. Okay. So that leaves me with Justice Kannan, and I think Mr. Atul Lakanpal is also there. So he's also an experienced mediator.
Yes, he's the coordinator of our
yes.
High Court.
Yeah.
Insights. He's the man behind the entire. Thing.
Now, I just want to put a proposition before this August gathering. Whether the mood, the mind, or the behavior of a mediator has an impact on the ethical values of mediation. does it have an impact on the ethical values of mediation? Now, what are the ethical values of mediation? I'm just putting my ideas here. I would love it if either Justice Kannan or Mr. Lakanpal or Mr. Sriram Panchu would tell me that I'm wrong or right or confirm what I'm saying. I'll be very grateful to them if they do that. But see, for example, mediation. What are the most important ethical issues in mediation? I see that first is self-determination. The parties have to decide on what is going to be the outcome of the mediation. That is number one. The second thing is the neutrality of the mediator. The third thing is the confidentiality aspect. I'm just going to touch upon these three. There are many other ethical issues. I'm not going into that now. But these three, let us look at, I just want to look at it as to how these three ethical issues can get impacted by the mood, the mind, and the behavior of the mediator. Now, what happens if, supposing, one party touches a raw nerve? Everybody has a boiling point. Everybody has a flash point. Sometimes parties can really, take you to that point where you really feel like just tearing your hair or, catching the party by the collar and shaking up and saying that, look, what is wrong with you? What the hell are you talking? How many times that moment has come? All of us would have definitely experienced that moment, where you really feel like you really reach that flash point where you just lose it, where you really get angry with the party. Now, does that not have an impact, your mood at that time? Your mood where you get angry, your mind which gets prejudiced because of the anger, and your behavior, which the way you talk to the party, the way you retort or you give an angry repartee to the party, how you do that, does it not impact on your neutrality? Does it not impact on the party's right of self-determination? And if supposing you're going to carry that anger forward, if supposing you're having a private session and you've lost it with the party, are you going to maintain the confidentiality in front of the other party? That look, that fellow is wrong. He's such a bad guy. How many times have we, may not be in such direct terms, but when you go back to the other party, the party can make out that, look, this mediator is very upset with my other counterparty. That can happen. Will that not amount to a breach of confidentiality? Are you not giving out that you are upset with the other person? I just want, I think we should look at things from, if we look at it from the ethical issues as to what impact can these things have? Do they really have an impact?
Just 1 minute there, Jawad.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I was hearing a couple of days back, a professor speaking to several persons from several countries. This was organized by the Harvard School of Negotiation.
Yes.
He was giving out his own example of how he found at one time that the party kept intervening, kept interfering with the narration. So he tried to calm him, he was not doing. Hoffman just got up from his place and said, now please, this is not fair. Let me go to my room. I'll come back when you are all ready, because this can't go on when somebody makes interferences like this. He went away. Then after some time, I believe there was an kind of a disquiet there for people. They were very uncomfortable that the mediator left the place. Then they went there to his room about half an hour later. And then they said, no, everything is fine. Please come over. Then he went back. Then Hoffman now says, what a bad thing which I did. I could never have done anything to get angry and then get away. And those persons to come and plead with me to take me back. It can never happen. So he warns against this kind of a thing. This is probably the reason why we need to be very clear that certain qualities just can't fit in there as a role of a mediator. It just can't happen. Therefore, you compromise on your neutrality, the way you have expressed anger. Expressing anger is one manifestation of losing out neutrality. You're talking about confidentiality of how this can go. But then I think if that is lost, then the very purpose of mediation itself is lost. Therefore, I think at a very fundamental level, we need, if you're unhappy on that day, if you're angry, if there was some occasion in the house which was not keeping you good, you would rather not hold mediation on that day. Or you need to compartmentalize, among other qualities of what we need to cultivate.
Exactly.
We need clear compartmentalization in our mind. Have we not seen, all of us have seen that picture in picture? You have a picture, large picture. There are new televisions these days that there can be a smaller picture. You can watch that, you can watch that. You can get this zoomed and then other one will go back. It's something like that of several things of what may happen. If you can keep all your anger elsewhere, or if there is your own mood, you need to arrive in a state of complete amiability and comfort. And it is so essential that you keep that momentum going. Your personal conduct will surely infect the place. There is no doubt at all about that. So therefore, to my mind, it does have a very serious impact, Jawad. And I heard also some person saying recently, like I said, Hoffman saying this is just not possible. Yeah, Shriram is there and talking about how anger among ethical considerations, how your own anger, does it not compromise on neutrality? Does it not take a very serious beating to the concept of mediation itself? I was trying to respond to that, Shriram.
Should I say something?
Yes.
Sir, I will just take out from where Mr. Javed and Mr. Justice Kannan has left. I think we have to gain this confidence of the client, of the impartiality, and maintain it throughout. What I have felt in my experience, whatever little I have, is that the parties are judging you every time. Every step, every reaction of yours is being judged by both the parties, whether we are favoring one party or the other. And the moment we just tell to one side or the other, we lose our neutrality, and the confidence of the parties, one party or the other, also goes down, and there are chances that we may end up, losing that confidence. So the other thing which Mr. Jawad was saying was regarding the ethics of mediator. Sir, I would like to just develop on this thing, whether when we select a mediator, like we all lawyers are generally, lawyers are being trained as mediators. And when we are being selected as mediators, does anybody take into consideration our past conduct or our conduct as a lawyer and a behavior in the court or in the bar or in the society? Because when this process was being started in 2008, Justice Sinha had come to the our High Court, and he had enlisted so many points to be taken into consideration when their mediators have to be chosen, lawyers or the people have to be chosen for the training to be a mediator and act as a mediator. Of course, you people pass and fail him as after training, whether he has passed this course as a mediator or not. What about his reputation, lawyer and a person? Because my experience goes that the clients are so smart these days, the parties are so smart, they actually have all these learnings about a person and his character and his behavior and his impartiality. So this way, the ethics, I think, even before we are being appointed as mediators or being chosen to be mediators, I think some part of that should be taken care of. I think I'm a little diversified from the topic, but I thought in my mind that this is also very important, how we choose the mediators.
I think you're absolutely right there, sir, because a person's personality itself definitely, defines to some extent as to how good a mediator you would be. Supposing you're a person who is very argumentative and who tends to be fixed on your ideas, and you're not a good listener, then you cannot be a good mediator, for the simple reason that you're not going to sit there and listen to the party. So this definitely becomes an issue, and I feel that yes, there should be some way of screening before selecting mediators for training, and even after the training, I feel there should be some kind of an evaluation that is done to see whether the mediator has really imbibed the qualities that a mediator needs to have.
Javed, I would like to just point out one thing. In mediation, the parties are not bound to be with us. Like in the court of, otherwise in courts, they have no option but to be before the court.
Exactly.
So our job is a little more difficult than a judge to be first gain their confidence with our impartiality and confidentiality.
Yeah.
Judge doesn't have to do that. He's there on a seat of authority. So my opinion, rather suggestion is that we have to be better than the judges. Justice Kannan should not mind that. We should not. in our reputation, personality, I think we have to be better than judges. Then people will trust us.
Absolutely. I think we'll ask Mr. Sriram Panchu's views on that also.
Yes, that's right. He's the best.
So
Let him answer.
Yeah. Sir, I had lost contact, lost the connection for some time. I couldn't listen to what was happening, and I think you also were not there. So what the issue that I tried to raise was that whether the mood, mind, and behavior of the mediator, whether it has an impact on the ethical aspects of mediation, mainly self-determination and neutrality. Because if supposing the mediator, I'll just share one example, and I would request you to give your comments on that. I was doing a co-mediation. It was a dispute between a husband and wife, where this husband was working abroad in the Gulf, and the wife was a professor, a very well-known professor in a leading college here. And they were living separately for a very long time, and she had a daughter, an 18-year-old daughter, and she had bought some properties. Now the husband was claiming those properties. Now my co-mediator was so carried away by the plight of the wife and the daughter that she gave a very impassioned speech to the man, reminding him about his duties as a father and all that. He got very carried away with that, and he said that I want to settle everything. I want to withdraw my case now itself, he said. Then I told him, I said, it's a very good decision that you have taken. I think you should think about it and come back the next day. He comes back the next day and blasts my co-mediator, saying that, how dare you try to brainwash me? It's all because of your, brainwashing that I agreed. Thank God I didn't take the decision yesterday. I was saved from, giving up my rights and all that. So my feeling is because I felt my co-mediator was so moved, so carried away by what was happening, and naturally so. I'm not saying that we are also human beings. That is where I feel how far can we really go, whether it impacts, because supposing we had reached a settlement. In fact, my co-mediator was very angry with me because we did not record the settlement on that day. So how far does it impact on the ethical values of particularly self-determination and neutrality? I also mentioned confidentiality, but not so much confidentiality as these two issues.
I don't know. I think these are two, they stand at different levels. Ethics and impartiality are not, they're not condonable, they're not malleable. And they're not really, you may say, well, this is my mood, this is my behavior, this is the way my mind thinks. But if you're traveling if you get in the area of, not observing ethics, then really it's not an excuse at all. So I think, again, mood, behavior stands at a different operating level. Where there are changes, it's possible to have a little give and take, a little stretch. But on ethics of impartiality, confidentiality, I mean, there is no give, there is no play, there's no degree of flexibility. So I really think they fall into two different compartments. That is, my mood or behavior doesn't really, condone a shortfall in ethics. So one of you was talking about, I think maybe Atul. He said, no, as a we're not judges, we are mediators. Something is more difficult. I would say yes and no. Remember that as a mediator, you are in the middle, like judges are. Judges are in the middle, mediators are in the middle, to keep the balance, to have a better perspective. But the judge is elevated. The mediator is not. And that itself gives us, this important clue that the mediator is able to reach out to parties at human levels. Frustration, joy, disappointment, anger, and reach out to the individual parties. A judge has a power of authority, but the mediator has this unique advantage of being able to converse with parties on the things that really matter to them. That's his or her advantage, which a judge doesn't have. The judge can't find out what parties want, and that's not his job either. There was another comment about, this is my quality as a lawyer. I'm very strong, I'm argumentative. How can I be a mediator? I actually think there are two hats you wear. You wear one hat as a lawyer. When you get to the mediation room, you wear another hat. To some extent, there is a change of personality. There is a change of attitude. There is a change of behavior. To some extent, therefore, I would say it's not really incompatible to be one kind of lawyer and to have mediator qualities. As I said, but to some extent. Beyond that extent, you're unchangeable. I mean, I have good friends in the bar who nothing is going to change. If they're lawyers for another 3 generations and 3 births, they're going to be the same way. Some qualities are so inbred in them. Even lawyering, what do we do? We play a role, like Shakespeare said. We start up on the stage. We play a role. Take off that hat, and before you get in the mediation room, remember you're wearing another hat. And when you get in the mediation room, I would say very consciously, leave some things outside the room. Whatever you're going through in other places, at home or work, whatever, make sure you're leaving that outside the room. Like you step into a temple, you leave your footwear outside. So leave that baggage outside. Again, very consciously. Change your hat consciously, leave the baggage outside consciously. And I'm going to close with this. So one last word, which is on a personal level. Look after yourself. A lot of mediations, you can get burnt out because it's very draining. You can argue a full day in court, not be tired. But try and do a full day of mediation, and you'll be an absolute limp rag at the end of it. We do 3-hour, 4-hour, 5-hour mediations. So I would say be careful, don't get burnt out. Look after yourself. Okay.
Yeah, Sriram, there are 1 or 2 questions which I noticed probably you can answer, or they seem like simple ones if you would allow me the benefit. It is from Himanshu. Is there any provision so mediator take advantage of innocent parties? Where is the question of mediator taking advantage? The question does not arise. In fact, the example of what Jawad was saying about how one mediator was was moved, she gave a lecture. You get moved, all right, but then you never express it in so many words. There is a difference. We always say, don't we, that there is a difference between sympathy and empathy. That you need to have your feelings properly reflected again, mirrored to them. Beyond that, no, nothing. It's the same way that there is nothing like a strong party and a weak party in a mediation. You need to buck up for who is innocent, to give them length. Don't worry for the inarticulate if they are. If the person is innocent, doesn't know anything, ask sufficient questions so that she feels empowered to say what is essential to be stated. So therefore, try to bring at all times a balance. That is what is a mediator's job. You can't really, therefore, question of take advantage of somebody. You can't even impose on them, such as what Jawad said, now I think you should do this, something like that. It's completely wrong. I've noticed somewhere that mediators behave like judges. Atulji says now they should be, mediators must be better than judges. Yeah, stay better than judge. Don't come as judge at all to give any form of judgment or your views. That is one thing which I noticed, and therefore I thought I should respond to that. There is yet another question which I see is people agree to the chair, not to the mediators. I'm not too sure about what the question is. If you are talking about the chair, by that meaning, judge is able to get his views expressed and then they implicitly obey. It doesn't happen in mediation. Is that what you're saying? We have different activities. A judge may probably deliver something, a judge is entitled to be judgmental in his ways. A mediator just does not do that. And therefore, there is no question of not understanding, not accepting what the mediator says. Mediator has no business to say anything for that person to accept. It is that person who has to accept his own suggestion or the suggestion coming from that side. Or to carry conversations in such a way that all decide like that. That's how it should be. Take it from me. It's never a thing. Probably these are in some places that is stated that towards the end when the conversations take place and that there is an impasse and we have worked out at everything, both parties say, now, sir, we are prepared to go with what you're saying. The temptation even then to say what I'm feel like saying. The person may not, having accepted that kind of a deal, later may feel exceedingly unhappy. Therefore, you should at all times as a mediator resist the temptation to say anything that they must do something. It must be their own statement of what gives them comfort. That is what is essential. So therefore, if you doesn't accept a mediator, it does not arise at all. He will not make any such statement which would require acceptance of the mediator. Mediator's neutrality must be accepted, and he must conduct himself in such a way that it's so visible and transparent, and that's how it should be.
Sir, I would like to say that probably the question was practically what we see is some mediators do play foul games. They not only gain monetarily, they actually misuse this process to gain professional cases, and they get money also, and they also sometimes they misuse the parties also. So that kind of complaints we get. Probably the question would have been that whether the mediator should do all these things. Definitely he should not always do all these things. He cannot, he should not. And I think there should be some mechanism to ease out those people.
Mr. Lakhanpal is actually time and again trying to hammer the point that once we select the mediators, especially who are trained mediators from the High Court, at least we should have certain background or what credentials they carry within the market. Market not means the professional market, but the sentimental market, that what his credentials are. Sometimes he's saying that we just have a 40 hours training and we give them a mediation. Then rather one black sheep can spoil the entire a reputation of the mediation. That is his take. What personally I've met him in
Sir, what I
I
feel
think,
is
Vikas,
that we are
if
still
I
at
may
the.
just, sir, if I may just interrupt for a minute, I think Mr. Sriram Panchu may not be very comfortable. So
Okay.
if he has to
Correct.
comment anything, then we can hear his comment and then he can
One
leave.
comment from Mr. Panchu I can take, because somebody has posted Mr. Parvez Khan. He says, Mr. Panchu, kindly highlight the technique to maintain mood to face challenges from advocates representing parties. Unmute. I'm trying to unmute him. So 1 minute, I'm unmuting you. Meanwhile, yes, sir. Panchu, sir.
Yeah, can you repeat that?
Sir, the question was from Pravez Khan. Please highlight the techniques to maintain the mood to face challenges from advocates representing the parties.
Yeah, there can be multiple challenges from advocates. Some of them don't like the process at all. Some want to derail the process. Some will take antagonistic positions. Some will try and challenge your authority. But the advantage you have is that you've got the party in the same room. So if the advocate says, no, this mediation is not good, this process is not good, nothing will happen, you're in a position to explain, what its benefits are. If the advocate is antagonistic to you, you don't get antagonistic to him, don't get angry with him. But keep your cool. Just say, yes, I understand your point. Let's try and maintain a level of courtesy. I'm sure you also want to do that. So let's proceed on that. Let's all try and be courteous to each other. If you keep your cool, you know how to react to the advocate. A lot of times advocates are negative, but you can draw them into the process, and slowly they start to change themselves. Never lose your temper. If somebody else in the room is losing their temper, you can't tell an advocate, you're just spoiling the whole thing. Don't lose your temper. Take a break if you like. Speak calmly. 1 minute of calm behavior and speaking with some deep breath will get you back to normal. But be firm. The minute somebody breaks a ground rule, if at that time you're very firm, the first time, it's no, this will not do. I'm sorry, this will not do. Then the message goes out. Okay, this mediator is not going to allow nonsense. So, yeah, but it's quite a job, I can tell you. When you have a resistant advocate, it's quite a job.
So one issue which invariably many mediators have, one is to understand the mind mood of the mediator. Once we have all the four experts, like all of you on this common platform, we are all enamored by that fact. But let's assume there are 10, 20 more parties in this thing. It's sometimes not very easy to anticipate. As a mediator, one should also understand how to understand their mind and mood, and how we should just funnel it down so that the parties could actually settle down. What is your view on that? How to understand the sentiments of the party, that how actually we can bring them to a point of settlement, especially when the number of parties are very more large.
Yeah,
Very right question to a right person.
Yeah, Sriram.
Mr. Panchu has
If he has gone in for mediation at Ayodhya, I think he's the right person to answer that.
So that's what I'm saying, because that was one of the largest issues. Then I said, I was reading it down that for 2 states settlement, he was just asked to mediate. I thought, let's have the insights from a person who is expert.
I think the feather in the cap is Ayodhya.
Yes.
And I think, to an extent, you can be mindful of parties' mood and parties' mind. But understand that we are not psychologists. We're not here to change parties. Our job ultimately is to move them to a settlement. So if you find that anything is detracting from that, I would say you don't have to spend too long a time, in focusing on these moods. What you need to be able to do is to, in a sense, work around it, pull them back to this job of creating options, looking at suggestions. But in the process, you may have to help them if they've taken a particular stand. They would need help, in changing that. It's very difficult, for people to climb down from something they're talking about. That's why you need to skillfully help them. So I would say you do pay attention to parties' mood and the state of the mind, but only up to a point. And beyond that, we're not psychiatrists. We're not therapists. So you can't be bothered excessively with, parties' moods.
Yes.
Yes.
No, sir, I was not on that particular point. I said that sometimes that key that it is just like what we say in a case that you reached a 49% to make it 51. Sometimes as a mediator also you reach to a particular point, you feel that it's just settled. Like Mr. Jawad said, one was settled, next day though it was on he was giving an example on a different perspective. But sometimes it so happens you feel that yes, the parties have actually agreed. It is probably where it requires a finer nuances to understand and how that settlement could actually be creased out. The differences or the wrinkles what are there should be how that should be creased out. That also requires certain understanding of the issues in the right way.
Make no mistake. You may have covered 99% of the way. There may be just 1% left. But you can't finish that day, so you all agree to meet the next morning. Don't be surprised in the least if the next morning they start going back on what they've agreed. Don't be surprised in the least. I would say learn to expect it. Understand it's very difficult for people, in a sense, to give up conflict. For some people, it's become part of their lives. They don't know what to do, that conflict is over. There's always rethink, always somebody else coming into the act and saying, you don't have to give up so much. So there is nothing like 49% and 1%. That last 1% can give you a hell of a lot of trouble. So never go in thinking, I've wrapped it up, it's just going to take 10 minutes more. I've done that enough times and paid the price for it. You have to spend a lot more time. So be watchful for these surprises. Yeah.
So we are all ready for the surprises, but some finer point on that, how actually we can do that. Sometimes we just feel that we have just reached the point, but yet it creates certain differences.
You may have to start all over again.
Point well taken.
Again, look at some facts. You again have to look at options. You again have to focus on interests. You may have to start all over again.
According to you, it will be relooking, revisiting the entire issue.
Yeah.
So one question. Yes, one question Mr. Sapandhir is taking. He's a trained mediator. He just wants to put a question.
Sir, with due respect, sir, may I make a question? Just there is one question in my mind. In some mediation processes, what the lawyers do for the parties, and parties are there, they say after private session or after every session, both parties agrees. They agree for mediation. Ultimately, they will say that we will come into settlement. Let's discuss with our lawyer. And after consulting the lawyer, they say we will not do it. no, you are binding us, no, this and that. And what should we do in that scenario?
Well, why is the lawyer not in the room?
Lawyers are basically not coming in the room. They stay alone separately, and only the parties are coming here in some mediations.
See, I've always found that, it's good to have the lawyers in the room when mediation talks are going on. Outside the room, a lawyer can tell the party anything. He can say, well, you have such a good chance of winning. Why are you giving up so much?
That's right.
Inside the room with the mediator, it's not easy for him to say that. Because you can turn around and ask him, are you 100% sure of winning? He'll have to say no.
Huh?
So I always find the advantage to have the lawyer in the room
Wonderful.
rather than the lawyer outside.
Thanks for that.
But yes, party comes back and says, well, I'm not agreeing. Then again, you have to start this process. Why are you not agreeing? What's the reason? There must be some reason why you're not agreeing. And start to deal with that. There's no point saying, well, you agreed yesterday, now you can't go back and change your mind. He can change his mind at any time. So, but as I said, I find it useful to keep the lawyer in the room. And lawyers can sometimes be cooperative.
Just to add to what Mr. Sriram Panchu said, I think one of the basic things that you need to keep in mind as a mediator is that it is not your problem. It is the party's problem.
That's right.
Okay. That basic fundamental idea, if you have in your mind, you will realize that whether the law, even assuming sometimes, lawyers may find it difficult, it's always better to have them involved from the beginning so that they know what is happening in the room. But sometimes, if they are busy, they are not able to attend the mediation, they may be held up somewhere or they may be called away. In those circumstances, it's very important that before the party takes a decision, you always tell the party that, look, discuss with your lawyer and come back. So that obviates the possibility of the lawyer throwing a spanner in the works at a later point of time. So let us not forget that, it is not your solution, it is the party's solution. And the lawyer knows, let us respect the lawyers and acknowledge the fact that the lawyer knows what is best for his client. The lawyer always has the best interest of the client in his mind. Let us not assume that all lawyers are crooks. Let us not assume that all lawyers are there to, damage the settlement. They want the parties to go on fighting in the court. They want to extract more fees. I think that is something we need to remove from our minds. Let's not forget that we are also lawyers. Let's respect the lawyers and call the lawyer and said, sir, this is what was discussed. And if you have any concerns about this, let us hear those concerns. Let us understand what your concerns are and how we can address them.
Sir, I totally agree with you.
So that would be, I think, the best way to approach the problem of lawyers throwing, creating obstacles.
Sir, I totally agree with you. I think one should have a lawyer of both sides in loop right from the beginning in the mediation process. Otherwise, the lawyer can actually destroy all settlements arrived at any point of time, even after signing of the agreement.
Yeah, exactly.
So it is necessary that the lawyer should be there. I think Sriram Panchu, you have taken a lot of pain to be here, and you have been personally injured today. We actually respect you a lot for this commitment to be here. In fact, sir, and with your commitment today and being here, you have increased your respect in our hearts and our love for you. Actually, we are.
I fully endorse what you have said. That in fact, it shows his commitment towards the mediation, and that shows why that it's often said, and I have often said on this webinar, that successful people don't do different things; they do it differently, and that is why he was picked it up, the 3 mediators for that Ayodhya, and what you said, that is the one feather. Though he says that one has to wear the 2 hats, but that it's not one feather. He has so many feathers in his hat that you can only acknowledge. So
I think because I think Justice Kannan and Mr. Jawad, all of them are so committed to this mediation process. I think we are very lucky to have them here together. It has been just like an refresher course for us, rather advanced course for us.
I will just cut you short. the fact that they are so popular, we have the trained mediators of our High Court, Monica Jalota, Punita Sethi, Geeta Sharma, Sapandhi, the mediators of the High Court who have created their own niche. They have been asked by the High Courts that they should train people further. And they are on the platform only to hear them. It shows the volume that we are lucky. Just like we say Brahma, Vishnu and Mahesh, we cannot compare with them, but they're Trimurti coming on the same platform, helping us to have the deeper insights. I was talking to them and I requested that after this minds, moods and of the mediation, we should have something where we can just, during this lockdown period and now June, where we can have certain nuances learned and we can just get the chisel out things and funneling in the right perspective. So it's time, the questions will keep on pouring. And once you have people of the stature of Mr. Sriram Panchu, then Mr. Jawad, Justice Kannan, and Atul Lakhanpalji, it would always be, that, so you all are four pillars of the institution in a different way. We all learn with that. We are all in a common room, and you all have created four corners of the room so that the right inputs come in the room and we are all learn in that entire process. But we are still running short of time. I will request Mr. Atul Lakhanpal, who is a senior advocate, a coordinator, and even though he's a trained mediator plus a coordinator of the mediation, but if one meets him, he charms everyone in his own way. I feel that his success rate is the way, but just like all three, these key speakers, he also attracts in his own way. And then the mediations, the toughest mediations by the court are also referred to him because the way he creases out the differences is an art to be learned by him. Not only as a mediator, but otherwise also I've been sharing various issues with him. He's a treat to be heard on any platform. Thank you, sir.
Because if I may just add one thing, that it has been always my privilege that whenever I have been to Chandigarh, Mr. Lakhanpal will always take time off along with various other mediators, Rita Kohli, so many other people, Sachin Jain, all these people, they all take time off, and especially Mr. Lakhanpal, in spite of his hectic schedule. Invariably, either for lunch or for dinner, at least one time, we have a meeting with them. And I really regard it as an honor and privilege that I know him. And just before we hand over to him, I just want to say that you said 4 pillars. No, there are many pillars. All the 72 participants who are here on this, all of them are pillars. But I don't think we can really belong to the category of Mr. Sriram Panchu, Justice Kannan, and Mr. Lakhanpal. We are all trying to emulate them, trying to fit into their shoes hopelessly. But let's hope that one day we will reach that level. Thank you.
Mr. Jawad, only one point. As you said, Ma'am Rita Kohli was also on the platform, Advocate Pooja Sharma, then we had Sachin Jain. They're all again mediators of high repute in the High Court. I'm just saying that why I'm saying few names could skip out. And we had, right now we are 72. At the initial stage, we had 150. And when we had discussed on this platform, you said that we shouldn't go by the quantity of the participants. We should actually go by the quality of participants, because we have taken a subject which was primarily exclusive for the mediation. And people latching upon that shows the volume that the topic chosen by all three of you has been well received. Over to Mr. Lakhanpal.
Thank you, Vikas, for giving me this opportunity to thank all of these stalwarts. Jawad, on a personal note, happy Eid Mubarak. We will wait for your semiyas. No, Eid Mubarak to all of us, not to you alone. Okay.
Thank you.
That's right.
Eid Mubarak to all.
But it has been a great pleasure to hear all of you. We have been actually enlightened by you. And every time we get enlightened, we learn new techniques from you, new methods from you. Every time you come over, rather, I would say, whenever we treat you for a lunch or a dinner or invite you a cup of tea, we have a very selfish motive. We know that while talking out, even eating food with you, we'll be gaining some knowledge. Rather, unintentionally, you will be teaching us so many things and finances of mediation. And that's what we always endeavor. Justice Kannan has been with us for such a long time. He is no longer a South Indian. He's almost a North Indian now. That part I don't want to distinguish between North and South, but I'm just in a lighter way I'm saying. But he has been such a party to us that even as a judge, whenever we called him, he was there every time to help us, to give us, impart knowledge to us. And every time we have learned something new from him. Actually, Kannan Saab, real thanks to you. And Mr. Shriram Panchu, it's been great experience always when we got trained from you, when we got advanced training from you. And today we have actually got a person who has put the mediation to a level in India which we were not even thinking about, that the Supreme Court will interest the most contested litigation, that is the Ayodhya. I think it must be 50 or 60 years old to mediators, and appointing you one of the mediators, though I would have liked that all three of you should have been appointed there as mediators, not those untrained people. But anyway, but you have put our mediation process at a very high pedestal. And we hope that we see more of you in many more controversial and all these cases. So thank you very much for all of you, please. And keep coming here.
Atulji, I would just like what you said, just liking to add that these all three people are cherry on the top of the cake. But large number of participants with names could not be read out. No offenses to them. It's just the number of participants are so many, and everybody is a mediator in his own mood. Madam Kavita, Pooja, Sangeeta, Vibha, and large number of mediators I do not know because I've not interacted with
Pan-India.
And no, in fact, I received 2 messages. How can we log in and whether this time is of Indian time or this thing? It shows that people outside India know, because these three people have their presence outside India also. And Justice Kannan, as you said, he's also done, he has come on our platform. Otherwise, also he can speak seamlessly on any issue. So once again, thank you to Mr. Shriram Panchu, Justice Kannan, Jawad, Mr. Atullah Khanpal, and all those participants who have actually helped us to the thought process, which we all four decided at the first instance, has been accepted widely. And this time, Mr. Lakhanpal, I will say, instead of going to the Facebook, we thought let's go on a YouTube, because it's a more serious topic where we should have actual serious participants listening to an issue which will actually help the fraternity at large. And tomorrow we have a webinar at 5:30. Justice Maushmi Bhattacharya, do join us. And I've pitched in the SMS. Everybody stay safe, stay blessed. A last word from Justice Kannan before we wind up.
Before Justice Kannan gives you the last word, let me give you the second but last. I want to say it's a pleasure to connect with friends from Chandigarh. Atul, you spoke of love and respect to me. Let me tell you, it's mutual. It comes from me to all of you.
It's my pleasure. It's a great honor knowing you.
It comes from me to all of you. And let me tell you that if we consider ourselves as teachers, which we are, when the student starts doing better than the teacher, I've seen this so much amongst my colleagues in Chennai, other places who I've trained. So that is really the big joy for us. Thanks again.
Last word is thanks to every one of you. Thank you. I love you all. So,
Mr. Panchu, special thanks that despite all that pain and despite all this, you have made it. It shows that, again, your grit is so much. And we also had Sapan Dheer, who has rightly pitched in the right a flavor to the present session. Thank you, Sapan, also. Thank you, everyone. Stay blessed. Stay safe. Thank you.
Bye-bye.